Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. Glad you could join me. Should be an interesting show. You know, you've heard, maybe read some of my pieces on who is really paying for conservation. Well, we're going to dig deep into that whole concept and talk about why that is so important to hunters and anglers and even target shooters out there. My guest is Jim Cucuruto. You might recognize that. How can you forget a name like that? From the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Jim is now the executive director of a new group. We'll learn all about all the funding mechanisms for conservation in this country and why you and I and everybody else in our world needs to maybe get a little bit more vocal about this topic. But that's not all. We'll be talking about the Upland Nation Glossary as well. We're on the letter D, so if you are expanding your horizons from a knowledge standpoint, prepare for that. It's all made possible by RuffLand Performance Kennels, Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Pointer Shotguns from LegacySports.com, Dr. Tim's Natural Performance Dog Food, Mid-Valley Clays Shooting School, and audiocardio.com. In fact, stick around for a chance to, well, honor one of your mentors thanks to audiocardio.com. First, a little bit of news. In Tennessee, they finally glommed onto something that a lot of folks are figuring out. I know personally from experience in Nevada and in Kansas, you can do this. Now in Tennessee, your hunting license is good for 365 straight days. You buy it on day one, whatever day one is for you, opening day for that matter. You can use it all the way up to the day before opening day, the next season. A friend and I have taken advantage of that at least a few years in a row. In Nevada, for example, you buy it late in the season, then you come back and you hunt early in the season next year. So good on you. Thanks, Tennessee, for taking into account all of us who like to visit more than once a year. And congratulations, Texans. According to the Texas Hunting Accident Report, 2021 was a record low in terms of accidents. Just 12, the lowest per 100,000 license rate since they began reporting in 1966. Keep up the good work. And in Wyoming, if you know somebody who deserves recognition, the application for the Tom Easterly Memorial Award is now open. It's only open to youth in the Bighorn Basin. They're the ones encouraged to apply. If you want more information, go to wgfd.wyo.gov or visit the Cody Region Game and Fish Office. Yeah, the Upland Nation podcast is brought to you in part by Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, crafted at the highest caliber. Sign up for the mailing list at sageandbreaker.com. You'll get first notice of all the new products coming through the line and also the very rare sales that Fred Bohm puts on. Check the videos on how to clean your shotgun the right way, whether it's a Mossberg, a Remington 870, or a Browning, or anything in between. Those show you how to do it right. And if you're cleaning a gun or looking for a new gun to clean, LegacySports.com is where you can peruse the entire line of pointer shotguns. New on the website, the 2022 catalog. It's full of all types of shotguns, from semi-automatics to over and unders, youth guns, high-end to entry-level, target guns, field guns, and a lot of them come with that variety of colors in a Cerakote finish. Learn more and take a look at the 2022 catalog at LegacySports.com. Well, this is like kind of old home week around here. A friend I made way back in the days when we were both working really closely. Well, he was working at the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Jim Cucuruto joins me. He is now the executive director of the Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation. we'll dive deep into that in just a moment. But first, welcome to the show, Jim. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm excited to speak with you. It's great to catch up.
I know. Hopefully, we won't go too far down, that kind of the reminiscing rabbit hole. But we'll talk a little bit about all of the things that are important to both of us and all of our listeners. In fact, let's start with that. How was your hunting season?
Well, I took full advantage of this past hunting season more than I have in recent years. I made a concerted effort to get outside as much as I could this past year, and I'm proud to say that that was a success. And I got to do a good amount of waterfowl hunting this year with my son, and did some whitetail hunting. But I had a friend that had a new chocolate lab that he needed to get some work behind, so he invited me out a bunch, and I got to go out a little bit more than I normally do for pheasants. So I had a really good season pheasant hunting. I'm very impressed with what here in Connecticut the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection does. They've got 40 stocking areas and stock a good amount of birds over about a 12-week period. And every time we went out, we put up birds, and I'd say I'm not going to lie and say I didn't miss a few, but I ended up with a pretty good percentage. And just you just can't beat watching a dog work.
Absolutely. It's so true. And especially a young dog that's kind of feeling their way through the beginnings of this. We played with a 12-week-old wire hair puppy a couple podcasts ago. And it was just so fun to see that dog just run around. And at that age, they're still learning to run almost literally. But that whole idea is right in my wheelhouse. Now, you said something interesting to me. This Connecticut, I mean, not well known for all that, and I understand they're stocking these birds, but that is a lot of places to put birds for a small population. 40 areas. I mean, how did they get so smart?
Well, it all feeds back to the model of the wildlife restoration and Pittman Robertson dollars, and spending those dollars wisely. First, buying up the habitat, turning them into wildlife management areas, and then with the addition of a state, I think it's a $17 stamp for bird hunting, they will use those dollars to buy as many birds as possible. And they've got volunteer network that do stockings 2 to 3 times per week. They're really smart with some of the partnerships they have, whereas we have some local game clubs that have land, and the DEP will work with them to say, hey, if you open that up to everybody, not just your members, we'll give you 500 birds or whatever the case may be. And it's a win-win for everybody. And they've got a great website where you can go, and there's a map of every place. They tell you, if you need a daily permit or not, you click a button. They've done a terrific job for what might not be known as a pheasant state. And I hate to let the secret out, but I also like to let the secret out because they deserve kudos.
Well, we're going to talk more about how these things are paid for very soon, because that is kind of the gist of the discussion in large part for us, you and me and your organization. Tell me a little bit about the background of Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation, the whys and the wherefores.
Sure. Well, prior to Outdoor Stewards, I had, the 11 years at National Shooting Sports Foundation, where I conducted a lot of research, millions of dollars of research that really gained a lot of insights for the firearms industry, caught us up to fill a lot of holes that was out there on participation and economics of hunting, and really how we can grow hunting and target shooting over those years. And, after I had left NSSF, I kind of looked at, what didn't I accomplish? And the biggest hole to me was there was never an organization that connected and engaged the industry, the manufacturers, the retailers, the rangers, with the federal and state wildlife agencies, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, or your state Department of Natural Resources, with those conservation groups, with the end user, the outdoors people, which I call hunters, anglers, and target shooters. A nice, easy acronym is HATS, hunters, anglers, and target shooters. We always talked about engaging the Orange Army and the Blue Wave, which are those hunters and those anglers. And through the research, we know there's 60 million active HATs in America that spend 1.2 billion days outside every year hunting, fishing, or target shooting. So we know we've got a huge audience, but the question was, how do we, engage them? What are we going to do? We know that they're funders of wildlife. We know they're stewards of wildlife. So, we put together a board and discussed the mission about what would be our mission for Outdoor Stewards of Conservation. And that mission is to use research-based communication and engagement programs to help recruit that next generation of HATs and promote the fact that HATs are the primary funders and stewards of land, fish, and wildlife conservation in America. So, the big question is how are we going to support that mission? And again, research, communications, and engagement are the key there. So the programs that we built, again, off of that research are twofold. The primary one that we're focusing on is an engagement program called Fill a Bag While Filling Your Tag. And again, we know that through the research, HATs have told us that 92% of HATs have picked up other people's trash while out in the woods or on the waters. But the problem was they never really told anybody about it. Hey, I just do it naturally, right?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm sure you've done it. I've done it. We've all come across other people's trash and picked it up as we go along and throw it in the back of the pickup and move on with our lives, but never really done anything about it. And we've all participated in, Earth Days or scheduled trout, stream cleanup days, but individually, never as a concerted effort. So this Fill a Bag While Filling Your Tag, we provide biodegradable bags to HATs all across America, and they can stick them in their fishing vest or in their hunting vest or in their tackle box. And when they're done fishing for the day and they're walking back through the trout stream, they come across a Mylar balloon or a styrofoam cup or whatever the case may be, stop, take out your bag, throw that piece of trash in it, and move along your way. But what we're trying to do is don't just not tell anybody about it. Nowadays, everybody's, wants to put something on social media, and they'll catch a nice trout. They'll take a picture. Here's my trout. Get a turkey. I mean, what's better to take a picture of than a beautiful pheasant, right? I mean, so we're asking people right on the bags. They're pre-printed with instructions. Snap a photo, post it to your social accounts, and use the hashtag #TrophyTrash. So now you've got your trophy trout or your trophy deer, So why not be proud of being a steward of conservation? You're already doing this. Get credit for it. Let's turn it into a national campaign that can be done 365, 24/7, year-round by up to 16 million people.
I love it.
And it's got a goal of, 100,000 pounds of trash annually out of the woods or waters. And I'm sure, like I said, you probably come across trash yourself.
Well, cross trash and then some other things that are intimately related with this. And I'm going to just spout for a moment or two on that. Number one, what a great idea. And while, what I like most about it is the idea that we need to show people. I mean, people need to be educated. I'll give you one example of that. I was hired to give a keynote speech at a conservation organization annual meeting a few years back. And it was a chance to finally get all this off my chest. So I started with who pays for conservation, and then I asked around the room, and somebody said, "Oh, my license fees do that," and then somebody else said, "Oh, our state income taxes do that," and I said, "Yeah, but not really." And then I asked, does anybody know what the Pittman-Robertson Act is? And a couple hands. In an organization, in a meeting of 200, 2 to 3 hands went up. So I'm going to put you on the spot to talk about that. But my point has always been, and it still is, we do all the heavy lifting and somebody else gets all the credit for it. Now, I know that's not a very constructive way to describe it, but the fact is, all sorts of other organizations have seats at the same dang table we do, but they haven't paid the price of admission. Am I missing anything here, Jim?
No, you're spot on, Scott. And I mean, it's always been a pet peeve of people in the know that, we've got to do a better job explaining that. And actually, one of the things that we're doing at Outdoor Stewards is posting micrographics to our social media. And those micrographics will be something along the lines that hats are primary funders of conservation, $9 million a day toward conservation. Another micrographic might say, $3.2 billion a year comes from hats and supporting of conservation. And, we back those up with, here's how much comes from excise taxes on firearms, ammunition, archery, or fishing products. Here's how much comes from those hunting licenses, those fishing licenses. I think it's like $500 million a year is contributed from hats to those conservation groups, the Ducks Unlimited, the National Wild Turkey Federations. But all in all, hats support about 70% of a state wildlife agency's budget. And as you know, those state wildlife agencies, biologists do incredible work maintaining habitat. So if you back it out without that funding from hats, state wildlife agencies aren't going to be able to do the work they do. Wildlife conservation is going to be in peril without the primary funders being those hats. We've got to continue to get the word out there. And, it's going to be a grassroots effort through that, a consorted group that continues to push out the message. We need to spread the word on who the true funders and stewards of conservation are.
Amen to that. We are listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. I get to ask most of the questions. Jim Cucuruto gets to answer them. He's the executive director of Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation. Back in the day when I first moved to this town, one of my side hustles was managing political campaigns and got somebody elected at the state level. And I said, now it's your turn to do me a favor. You need to make all of those hikers, campers, mountain bikers, wildlife, they need to buy a freaking license too and pay their fair share. And back then he said, oh no, then they'll want a seat at the table. And as you heard a moment ago, they already have one. They're just loud and grating. They're the squeaky wheel. So whenever anything comes up when it comes to wildlife or fish management, they always seem to get their point across, maybe even more vociferously than the others. Has that been an issue for you and your organization yet?
No, while certainly at NSSF, we had a very strong government relations team that managed that. And one of the things that while I was with NSSF, through the research there, some of the insights related to our government relations team, and I was the one that would be the expert witness for the industry on trying to protect Second Amendment rights and all that sort of stuff, and going in rooms with three opposing lawyers was not the funnest thing in the world. So, given the choice between that and promoting the positive message of conservation and recruiting the next generation, that's what we're really focused on at Outdoor Stewards of Conservation, is the positive message of what we're already doing and how we can bring in some more people that can spread that message. But I am certainly glad to see, organizations out there still fighting the good fight on the political front. And it's down to my message to people, that we're working with our constituents is, you've got to attend these local meetings. You've got to join your local organizations and help spread the word on who truly are the ones that are out there protecting habitats and wildlife and all that sort of stuff. And it's okay to share it, but, we just want to make sure that folks know who really are the ones that are backing this whole cycle of wildlife in America.
You know, I love your attitude about this and the philosophy that you guys are using. It's way less confrontational than the way I would do it, but that just comes with the territory, I guess. You know, I wrote an op-ed piece many years ago for our local newspaper, and the lead was, if you support wildlife management and conservation, buy a gun. And people thought I was nuts. But you can explain why I'm not off base at all with that, and we'll get started on that conversation, and then we'll pick it up again after the break. But, you know, how does that all work when it comes to fish and wildlife management and the funding of it?
Yeah, and that's great, you know, that you write those type of articles with the eye-catching headlines, and I was fortunate enough to be able to, you know, be reached out to as a resource for a lot of articles, and you kind of jarred my memory of a outside the industry publication. I think it was 530. That was more of a political organization, but they wrote an article on how, you know, firearms sales are saving the monarch butterfly or something along those lines. And it was just like they had a different audience, right? That saw that headline, and I could just imagine a butterfly lover going, what? You know, so within that article, and you just have to explain about, you know, back starting in the 1930s when there were, you know, not a lot of laws and regulations out there. The sportsmen of the world said, you know what? Wildlife is getting decimated because of unregulated market hunting and a few unscrupulous people. So let's start to self-police ourselves. And, you know, they were the ones that really worked with industry as well, saying, yeah, we want to make sure there's going to be, you know, nature available for future generations. And that started the Pittman Robertson were two key senators that started some legislation, and, you know, of course, Teddy Roosevelt before them, and Aldo Leopold. So you have to really kind of explain who the founders of conservation were, and they were all, you know, sportsmen and women back in the day, and they joined forces with, believe it or not, women's groups, that gardening groups and stuff like that had enough of, you know, these hats with the feathers on them, and they're, you know, killing all the birds out there just to make a hat and all that sort of stuff. So there is hope for the future where we can all join hands and work together, you know, the people that aren't paying for it and the people that are. But we just have to communicate, again, really who the true funders of that conservation model are. And again, we've seen tremendous wildlife restoration stories, everything from antelope out west to the wild turkey across the nation. White-tailed deer have thrived, you know, pheasant populations, I'm sure, were natural, are coming back as strong as possible. Waterfowl ones, the examples are countless, but again, it's all due to that funding model that's been around since the late 30s.
We'll get deeper into that and a few other things in that area. Hey, man, stand up and be proud, as one song I know very well says, don't doubt yourself. Jim Cucuruto is the Executive Director of the Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation. I'm Scott Linden, your host here at the Upland Nation podcast. We'll be back to Jim in just a moment, but before we do, we'll first talk a little bit about two of our sponsors here, audiocardio.com. Yeah, just like it sounds, and it's kind of interesting, audio, cardio. It's all about a workout for your ears. It's a hearing wellness app that will maintain and strengthen your hearing. It's kind of like sound therapy. It's really easy. You just put your earbuds in or your headphones on, and you can do any sort of other work while you're doing it because you really don't hear it. After you've got everything dialed in and adjusted for your hearing loss, you can start building it back, strengthening your hearing. There's a 14-day free trial. After that, it's just about $8.33 a month at the lowest rate for an annual subscription. Go to audiocardio.com cardio.com and watch the 2-minute video and figure out for yourself whether it's worth a try. Heck, in 14 days, you can figure out whether you really do have a little bit of hearing loss, and then you can decide whether this is the right way to, I guess I'll call it, provide some physical therapy for those little cilia in your ears that do all the really heavy lifting. And speaking of heavy lifting, it's a lot easier to do these days on your RuffLand kennel because handles are now included with every kennel. Yeah, you could have got them as an option early on, but now they just come standard with every single RuffLand kennel. Learn more about them at RuffLandKennels.com, and Ruff is R-U-F-F, RuffLandKennels.com. Easy to move them, a new standard color. I've got it. It's a millstone, kind of a gray, but that's as far as I'll go. I'm colorblind, cross-dominant, curved spine, and one leg shorter than the other, so I'm lucky I can be told what color it is. They do support Pheasants Forever, and they've got some new technology, ability to offer a wider variety of accessories. They all will integrate with your current kennel if you have one, or your current accessories if you're looking for a kennel. Learn more at RuffLandKennels.com. And with that, we welcome back Jim Cucuruto to the Upland Nation podcast. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, and so what was the highlight of your hunting season? Was it with that young Labrador, or was it that Drake wood duck you got?
Well, I tell you what, the highlight for me is, going out with my youngest son. He's been my hunting buddy for the past couple seasons, and we're kind of minimalists when it comes to waterfowl hunting. We'll just take our kayaks out and find a cove somewhere and throw a couple decoys out there. And, we'll get shots off here and there, but he had got his first banded goose this year. So that was, it's always a thrill to get a banded bird, but, seeing the excitement on your son's face when he realized that he got a band was something I will not soon forget.
Oh, I bet. That's got to be just spectacular, and I hope you have a big picture somewhere on the wall about it. It's funny. You and me go back a long way. I think the first project I did with the Shooting Sports Foundation was, Wing Shooting USA, the TV show, when one of our mutual friends came to me at a SHOT Show and said, "Hey, what are you going to do now?" And I said, "I'm making a bird hunting show." And he said, "Well, we'll fund that." So that worked out great for me. But in the course of doing all that, I got to know everybody over there pretty well. And I interviewed Steve Sinetti. He had just come from Ruger, and he was running the foundation then. And I asked him this, basically the same question I ask almost everybody in a position of power these days, and that is, you're a consummate hunter. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. What do you love most? And they all tell me a story much like you just told me. It's not about me anymore. I mean, do you see that more and more, Jim?
I do, and there's different stages of a hunter and an angler and a target shooter and all that sort of stuff. And I'm kind of in one of those later stages right now. But, and I remember actually at SHOT Show meeting you after, one of our research breakfasts that we had. And I was talking about a new initiative that NSSF had started, a recruitment initiative called Plus One. And you came up to me and said, "Oh, finally," right? Because you had been doing it for years. We'd all been doing it for years. But again, it's communicating that. It's getting more of the industry involved in that. Bring somebody with you. And through that research that we had conducted over the years, I boil it down to what we call the 3 I's, right? You need to provide information to that person that wants to get started. They don't know anything about, where to go, right? So you can point them, okay, go to the DEP website. They don't know what they need to buy, what the rules and regulations are. But, that second I, which is the most important I, is that invitation. And that's what we've all been doing. We've all invited somebody to come with us hunting or fishing or target shooting. But again, we kind of keep it to ourselves. Now spread the word. Put it out there on your Facebook saying, "Hey, I took Scott out on his first, ice fishing trip, and here's what it's about." Or and I know you've done wing shooting stories on that as well. But that was something that the stage I'm in, I enjoy seeing other people do this. We were fortunate enough to bring out, I think you might have seen it, internally, some staff on their first pheasant hunt, at NSSF. And we went to Orvis Sandinona, and they put out birds for us. And I mean, I had worked with these people for 10 years, and shame on me for never asking them before, or never going to HR and saying, "Can we do this? Can I put out, a group session?" And it was surprising the amount of people that worked within the firearms industry that had always wanted to go, but they were apprehensive about asking. But when asked, they will go. And we saw that over and over. We did things at Ruger. We did things with Sig Sauer. We did things with Daniel Defense. All you have to do is ask your staff, or ask your coworkers, or ask the person next to you in the pew at church, "Do you want to come with me?" And that come with is is a program that we're doing, falling under that same R3 umbrella. We want those 60 million hats to say, "Come with me next time I go."
Yeah, think about that. Even if only 10% of those people actually succeeded in turning someone else into a participant, I mean, that's 6 million more folks buying guns, ammo, bows, arrows, rods, reels, and paying that excise tax. So far we're down to 2 eyes. I want to hear that third eye, and then I want to tell you a story.
Sure. That third eye is an incentive. And originally, what we tried to do is you don't need an incentive to start, but it was that mentor. Like what we would do is work with partners, Union Sportsmen's Alliance, to reach their audience and say, "Hey, can you push this message out to your, union members, saying, if you introduce somebody new, tell us your story. We will provide you with a buck knife." So there's that incentive. Not that mentors really need that. They'll do it on their own, but a little extra something is not going to hurt. If somebody said, "Hey, Scott, would you take out, somebody on their first upland hunt?" "Yeah, I will." And then you say, "Will you take out somebody on their first upland hunt next week, and I'll give you a free knife?" "Okay." So it just incentivizes it a little bit more. But the key is that invitation. That by far, you're gonna get a lot of yeses to that invitation from unexpected people.
Yeah, I found that absolutely true. And the other thing, and I'm clueless sometimes, but I've written on this, and I think this is the next big hump we need to get over, and that is sometimes they're never going to ask us, but they really want to go, and we need to learn to be a little bit more perceptive about the kind of the more subtle hints. For example, I wrote a piece a couple of years ago for a magazine, and in it I said, here's some things they might do if they're really interested, but they don't think it's appropriate to ask. Do they look at all the pictures you show? Do they ask you what you're doing this weekend? Or do they ask how your weekend went? And do they ask for more details when you talk about a hunting or a fishing trip? Those are things that, maybe somebody a little bit more perceptive than me picks up on faster. Now, the other thing is, and this, again, I piss off a lot of people when I give speeches because I tell it like it is, or at least the way I think it is. And for years, I've been, like I said, I've been doing R3 before they came up with a name for it. But the challenge we face is anybody can help out, or anybody can drop their kid off at a youth hunting day, and all the poor volunteers babysit that kid for the day. And then the kid goes home with a couple pheasants. They all eat them. Everything's happy. The parents don't follow up. There needs to be some more long-term effort, and I see some of the organizations are now finally getting to the point where the word mentor is coming up more and more. It's not just a one-day thing. It's not just a fun day at the range. It's a relationship. Do you see that as well?
I do. And, you mentioned a couple of key things there. And I think upland hunting has it really easy because of two things, right? You've got a dog, which everybody loves dogs. I mean, and then you've got a pheasant, which is unbelievably great table fare. I mean, so that pushing the food aspect of hunting is how a lot of now adults are getting into hunting, right? You've heard the foodies, the farm to tables, the field to fork programs, the locavore movement. That food aspect is just a real easy, way to get somebody involved in hunting. And of course, all the dog lovers out there that say, hey, you want to come watch, see how my dog works the field. You don't have to carry a gun if you don't want to on the first time. I mean, my adult mentor, my neighbor Ed here, I took him out on a deer hunt, and he didn't want to carry a gun the first time. So you just take it at their speed. But those adult hunters, those new non-traditional hunters that aren't the 12-year-olds, they do have the means to follow up. They can drive themselves places. They can go buy their own products. They're old enough to buy a firearm and do that. So there's been a pretty good concerted effort among that R3 group.
I'm glad to hear that. That is absolutely where I think it needs to go next, in my humble opinion. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, the host. That's Jim Cucuruto. The organization that he is with is the Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation. Hey, Jim, if we want to learn more, what's the website address for you guys? Uh-oh.
Yeah, and we'd love to get as many people engaged as possible so they can learn more about Outdoor Stewards of Conservation at our website, www.stewardsofconservation.org. And, on there you'll be able to request a filler bag. We'll send you one of those for free and, help scale that into a national effort and get the credit we finally deserve for being the Stewards of Conservation.
I love that program, and I know a lot of committee meetings and a lot of discussions had to go on to come up with that one, but it strikes me as the perfect balance between my attitude, which is a little confrontational, and yours, which is all about data and being inclusive, if you will. So what else you got on the agenda for down the road? I know it's a relatively young organization and you're still feeling your way, but what are your other hopes and dreams for the Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation?
Well, like I said, we would love to become, that one organization that engages all those audiences that are kind of working separately, the Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the state DNRs, the manufacturers, the retailers, the rangers, and then that end user along with the conservation groups. Like I said, that just never has been, an organization that's done that before. So I'm very fortunate to have the background to have worked with all those groups for a decade, and now we're putting it all together. We've gotten a lot of positive comments from some of the folks that want to support this effort. We've already gotten partners in conservation or sponsors to, our fill a bag program. Some manufacturers, BOK Ammunition has stepped up, and Tennessee Department of Natural Resources has stepped up. So we feel that, we are going to be able to change the narrative out there on who funds conservation, finally get that message across to the general population. And, do good while doing it. We're going to get our hands dirty while cleaning up nature.
Let me write that one down. That's good. If you haven't used that yet, you probably should. There's one thing that plagues me all the time. It's always in the back of my mind. I just wrote another piece on this topic for Gundog Online, in fact, but the other groups out there, and I want to say everybody from Audubon to the National Forest Foundation will say, oh, we're saving wildlife and we're managing, fish and game and all that. And they don't pay an excise tax for anything. They pay a little income tax, and a little tiny fraction of that maybe goes to their state resources agency. But then they all hold up the Land, Water, and Conservation Act and the fund that's been created there. Does any of that money ever get back to bona fide wildlife and fish management?
I'm sure it does in a roundabout way, but the majority of it doesn't. It's not boots on the ground to get people, out there hunting and target shooting for sure. Just politically, it's a little bit charged there, but I think there's hope. There is a Recovering America's Wildlife Act, RAWA, that, as far as I understand it, got a good chance of passing, and that would bring $1.4 billion to state wildlife agencies. And the hope is that $1.4 billion would be used on those non-game species, which are just as important, as game species. That there's a lot of species that are in peril, and that money would go to support that effort. But then you can redirect that, that billions of dollars that hunters are doing to more specific programs on hunting, fishing, and target shooting. So there's hope out there.
Well, there you go, and I love that idea because it to a great degree it still irks me when I drive past a new guzzler being built, and I stop over and talk to the guys doing it, and it's not for game animals or anything like that. It's for endangered songbirds or three-toed salamanders or whatever it is, and it's still our money being used for all of that to a great degree. So keep up the good work. Give me the website one more time so that if anybody's interested, they can check it out.
Sure. www.stewardsofconservation.org.
Can't wait for a progress report. We'll talk more as you guys grow and mature. The organization, again, is called the Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation. Jim Cucuruto is the executive director. Jim, it's always a pleasure to talk with you, and hope to meet you down the road sometime again real soon. In the meanwhile, keep up the good work, and thanks for being on the Upland Nation podcast.
All right. Very much appreciate it. Take care, Scott.
You too. We got more to come around here, including our Upland Nation Glossary. We're on the letter D, and a new promotion that you might want to get involved in. I said a new promotion. You'll get the joke in a minute or two, I hope. Meanwhile, let's talk about Dr. Tim's Natural Performance Dog Food. I have a homework assignment for you. Go to drtims.com. Read up on Dr. Tim's feelings on why your dog needs a quality mix of diverse proteins from air, sea, and land source. I know, I sound like a Navy SEAL there, don't I? Well, maybe they could benefit from it as well. But anyway, Dr. Tim has done all the homework for you, so you can just crib all of his answers there, and then you'll pass the test and figure out for yourself why your performance dog needs a great food with all of those protein sources in it. The good news, free delivery right to your porch, 30% off your first order. Just use the code Upland Nation at drtims.com. Hey, how'd you shoot last season? Don't ask me. No, actually, I shouldn't complain, but I'm going to get better at it because I'm going to Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School and taking a lesson from Dave Fiedler over there, bringing a couple friends. We're going to stay for the weekend. He's got an RV park there for us. We're going to learn how to shoot better, and then we're going to go out and practice on any number of sporting clays, traps, skeeter, 5 stands, ranges. They're all out there. Learn more at midvalleyclays.com. If you're anywhere in the West, take a look at what they have to offer and where they are. Maybe make it a stop of your own. Shoot some of the uncrowded days and times because you're camped there too. Learn more at midvalleyclays.com. Time for the Upland Nation Glossary. This is your chance to become more erudite or just show off to your friends. Every week I'm going right down the list that's available at findbirdhuntingspots.com. And by the way, a lot of you helped put that together, so thank you all. In fact, if you were a field trialer, you probably helped with this D word, derby. We see it a lot bandied about. A derby stake is one of the competitions, if you will, one of the tests at a field trial for dogs. But not just any dogs. The dogs have to be between 6 months of age and no more than 2 years of age. So these are young-ish dogs that show all sorts of potential. That's what a derby dog is. If you didn't know now, you do. Derby dog. I promised you an interesting new promotion, and I hope you will take advantage of it. Audio Cardio, our new sponsor, asks, who's your hero? And I spelled that HEAR-OH, hero, because they're all about improving your hearing. You enter via the Wing Shooting USA Facebook page. Just go to the page, look for the post at the top. That'll take you to the link. You can learn more about what audio cardio is and how it could positively impact somebody who's positively impacted your hunting life, a mentor, spouse, friend, parent. Maybe they need a little help with their hearing, so you nominate them. 3 nominees will get a free year of physical therapy for their ears via the Audio Cardio app. It's all at the Wing Shooting USA Facebook page. That's where you start. And good luck. Now it's time to say thank you and farewell. Jim Cucuruto, appreciate your insights and the hard work that came into the Outdoor Stewards organization. Good luck on that. Thank you all for listening as well. Our sponsors, of course, and those who left ratings and reviews, including Outdoorsman81 and Jimmy CRF 450. I'll leave you with this point to ponder from author Phil Pastoret. Hey, if you think dogs can't count, try putting 3 dog biscuits in your pocket and give him only 2 of them. I'm Scott Linden, your host. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, see you at the range.